So partnerships are important because a lot of small businesses are partnerships. The reason that a lot of small businesses are partnerships is because you can become a partnership without any effort on your part. If two or more people start a business together and they don't take any other action, they don't file with the state or file for some other sort of business structure, then they're by default a partnership. So it's important because a lot of you will be part of partnerships at some point in your life. It's also important because it's super easy to become a partner without even meaning to. And what I mean by that is a lot of times two people will just, two friends like doing something together and they realize they can make some money by doing it. And so they just start making money and they don't realize that they're a partnership. And so all of the legal ramifications of being a partnership fall on them without them even realizing or intending to do that. And then the third thing I think is important about a partnership is that maybe this is why you might want to have a partnership, is because a lot of times different people have different levels of expertise. My wife is an artist. She paints giant paintings on the sides of buildings and things like that. I don't have that expertise at all. I can't do that. But I'm pretty good with books and numbers. And so together, we're actually able to form a more stable business than either one of us would be able to separately. So I think that's maybe the most important reason to have a partnership, is because when you have more people involved, you can leverage the skills and knowledge sets of all of the people.